The following is a fictional account. Everything you hear in this episode is meant to be entertainment.
Dr. Perry, are you home? It's me, Emma. Emma from Applied Cryogenics. Dr. Perry? Dr. Perry?
Hold on. I'll be right there. Can I help you?
It's me, Emma from Applied Cryogenics.
Oh, right. Emma. Come in. Have a seat. Can I get you anything to drink? What brings you out this way?
Well, it's been about a year since you were unfrozen, and most of our clients stop in occasionally for routine physical exams. You've not come by the office, so I thought I'd make a house call.
That's odd. No one mentioned that I needed to go in for a follow-up visit. Are you sure you don't want something to drink?
I'd love a glass of wine if you have any. Okay, you caught me. There are no required return visits to the cryogenics lab, but there was just something about you that made me want to see you again. You looked so peaceful laying in that cryogenic tube, and it took you 3 days to wake up. I know it's against protocol to track down a customer, but I just wanted to come see you and make sure you're adjusting to the future. Well, it's not the future for me, but it is for you. It must be so lonely not having any friends around. So what's it like living in a different time and place than you grew up?
Well, some of this technology is taking some getting used to. Otherwise, it's not really that different. I mainly stay here, and with all the delivery services bringing me anything I need, I don't really need to leave the house, which is kind of nice because I don't have to worry about driving or anything. But yeah, it gets kind of lonely. So, you know where, or at least when I'm from. What about you, Emma? What's it like working in a cryogenics lab and waking people up for a living?
Well, I was born right down the road in what's now the Planet Express building. It used to be a hospital until about 15 years ago. The work can be a little repetitious until someone doesn't wake up at all, or has a complete meltdown upon realizing where and when they are. We were keeping a close eye on you for about 48 hours, but I knew you'd pull through because your vital signs were stable. Generally, if someone doesn't wake after 24 hours of beginning the wake-up process, their heart rate begins to go crazy.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. It's the anniversary episode 500. And yes, I'm still stuck in the future. Now, I know it only happens for the century episodes, or at least it seems to be. Episode 400, I was in the future. Episode 500, I'm still in the future. But I am still doing a show, and I'm answering your questions because, you know, it just seems that that's what I do in the future, is I answer your questions. I've only got one, but it's one of those that, you know, as I did 100 years ago, because it's the year 2117 where I am, as I did, again, back 100 years ago, when I only have one question, I do a deep dive. And I'm going to do that again. So the question is, Darryl, in the timeline where you did not go into the future, you became a runner. Are you running in the timeline where you did get frozen? If so, what races have you run? Now, if you're not sure how I got into the future, go back, listen to episode 400. I will put a link in the show notes for that. So, how is it that there's a timeline where I got frozen and a timeline where I didn't get frozen? Well, that's because of the multiverse. And if you have listened to the show before, then you know I'm a fan of the multiverse theory. Now, before I answer the actual meat of the question, what is the multiverse? Well, the multiverse is a theory. It might be true. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. Like, you know, I'm stuck in the future. You're able to send me emails into the future. So maybe there's, you know, a multiverse where you can correspond with the future. Maybe that's just, you know, how everything works. Or maybe there are different timelines and multiple universes. Now, is there evidence for the multiverse? Maybe, maybe not. Back well over 100 years ago, there was an article from space.com about parallel universes, the theories and the evidence. The article begins, is our universe unique from science fiction to science fact? There's a proposal that suggests there could be other universes besides our own, where all of the choices you made in this life played out in alternate realities. So instead of turning down that job offer that took you from the United States to China, the alternate universe would show the outcome if you decided to venture to Asia instead. The idea is pervasive in comic books and movies. For example, in the 2009 Star Trek reboot, the premise is that Kirk and Spock, portrayed by Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, are in alternate timelines apart from the William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy versions of the characters. And then there's also something more recent to me, where there's like 4 different Star Trek universes. Now, you know that I'm not necessarily a fan of the Star Trek wars, but I am aware that they exist, and yeah, there's going to be multiple Star Trek universes, or maybe that only happens in the universe where I'm stuck in the future. The concept is known as a parallel universe, or what I prefer to call the multiverse, and it's a facet of the astronomical theory thereof. The theory has quite a bit of evidence that suggests that there is a multiverse. First, it's useful to understand how our universe is believed to have come to be. And again, this is what you believed 100 years ago, that there's actually more data out there now. But, well, I'm not allowed to tell you because it might alter your timeline. Or maybe it doesn't because, it's the multiverse. And for every timeline that gets altered, there's a timeline that doesn't get altered. We'll continue talking about the multiverse, plus I'll answer that question about whether or not I actually became a runner in the future where I got frozen, or rather in the timeline where I got frozen and sent to the future. Stay tuned.
Hello, Mr.
Sovereign. Ryan Sovereign. And yours?
Natalia. Care to play a game of roulette?
I'd love to.
Number and color?
69. Black.
As you wish. You're a lucky man, Mr. Sovereign. Not many win so well at a game of chance.
That's because it's not a game of chance, Natalia. It's a game of choice.
You are quite the man, Mr. Sovereign. Are you busy tonight?
Natalia, if you'll excuse me, I just received a very important email.
Later then, Mr. Sovereign.
Agent Sovereign, go to this webpage and follow. What kind of webpage is this? Is that Natalia?
I sometimes wonder what it would be like to go to the future and just start over.
I did just read about successful tests of sending people into the future, like actual time travel.
Yeah, that's right. There's actual time travel in the future, at least the future that I'm in. Now, it's only one way going forward for now, and, well, that's a topic for a completely different show about how time travel into the forward is possible. But we're talking about the multiverse. Why are we talking about the multiverse? Well, it's because I answer your questions. And the question, it's not about the multiverse, not directly Anyway, the question is about whether or not I became a runner in the future in the universe or the multiverse where I got frozen and I woke up 100 years later than when you are. So there's, and I talked about this in episode 400 a little bit, about how there's the technology that allows me to send podcast back 100 years. So yeah, I know it's this weird time warp sort of thing. So I'm here and you're there, but I'm still able to send you podcast. And maybe that only happens in the multiverse where I am, and I just think that I'm sending these podcasts to the past, and maybe you don't actually see them. I don't know. But before I answer the question about whether or not I became a runner in the future, I wanted to delve into this multiverse thing a little bit. Again, article from space.com from about a year ago in your timeline, well over 100 years ago where I am. And again, there's more updated info I just can't tell you because there's all kinds of classifications, and the assassin bots might come after me if I say something. So the argument for the multiverse has to do with the perceived origins of the universe, where around 13.7 billion years ago, simply speaking, everything that we know of in the cosmos was an infinitesimal singularity. Then, according to some, there was an unknown trigger that caused it to expand and inflate in three-dimensional space. As the immense energy of this initial expansion cooled, light began to shine through. Eventually, the small particles began to form into the larger pieces of matter that we know today as galaxies with stars and planets. One big question with this theory is, are we the only universe out there? With our current technology, we are limited to observations within the universe because the universe is curved, and we're inside a fishbowl, unable to see outside if there is an outside. And that is a big if. And we believe that there's an outside because if there's an inside, there has to be an outside, right? Back in 2012, there was a Space.com article that explained we don't know what the shape of the space-time actually is. We think it's a fishbowl, but maybe it's not. Maybe it just goes on forever. And, you can drive yourself crazy trying to think about infinity. Right? And then you have to wonder, is there a negative infinity? And if there's negative infinity, then does that cancel out the positive infinity? And then there's nothing, and that's how you kind of, just go crazy. If there's nothing, then that means that I don't exist, or maybe I only exist in the multiverses where I do, and then I don't exist in the multiverses where I don't. But there's one prominent theory, is that the space-time continuum is flat and goes on forever. Again, infinite. This would present the possibility of many universes being out there. But with that topic in mind, it's possible that universes can start repeating themselves. That's because particles can only be put together in so many ways. More about that in just a bit. And again, the link to this article about the multiverse will be in the show notes because I love putting things in the show notes. Another theory about the multiverse comes from eternal inflation, based on research from Tufts University cosmologist Alexander Valenkin, when looking at space-time as a whole. Some areas of space stop inflating, like the Big Bang inflated our own universe. Others, however, will keep getting larger. So if we picture our own universe as a bubble, is it sitting in a network of bubble universes of space? So when you, and I realize this is not going to be the best analogy, but when you fart in water, there are bubbles, and there are a bunch of bubbles. So is our universe just one fart bubble in an entire ocean of fart bubbles? Or is there only one and there is no ocean? What's interesting about this theory is the other universes could have very different laws of physics than our own, since they are not linked together. Or perhaps multiple universes can follow the theory of quantum mechanics, how subatomic particles behave, as part of the daughter universe theory. If you follow the laws of probability, it suggests that for every outcome that could come from one of your decisions, there would be a range of universes, each of which saw one outcome come to be. So in one universe, you did take the job that took you to China. In another, perhaps you were on your way and the plane landed somewhere different and you decided to stay there, etc. So based on this, there's a universe where I did get frozen. There's a universe where I did not get frozen. And actually, there are more than one universes where I got frozen and more than one where I did not get frozen, because every decision that I ever made plays out, and there are multiple paths to me getting frozen and multiple paths to me not getting frozen. But I did wake up, and I'm safe here in, well, it's no longer really the future for me because I've been here for over a year. So is it still really the future? Again, you can drive yourself crazy thinking about things like this, because really it's kind of the future from when it was 5 minutes ago, even for you. A couple more possibilities on parallel universes, and then I promise I will answer that question about, did I become a runner in the timeline and in the multiverse where I got frozen? And what are some of the races that I may or may not have run in the future?
Welcome, Agent Sovereign. Please put on your headset to enter virtual reality.
I'm ready. Hit me.
Now entering Unimatrix Zero.
I love this place. Secret community away from the...
Hey, Agent Sovereign.
Hello, who are you?
I'm Pixel. I like this place you've built in VR. Encrypted, secure, and very private. No one from the corporate system to see us or tell us what to do.
And if you're here, you must be friends with...
Oh yes, I've met the other girls, Brennan. But I'm here now because we have another mission. We need to hack into the new system. They're about to...
Tell me on the way. Let's get out of Unimatrix Zero. And don't worry, a quick hack solves everything.
So what do you say, Dr. Perry? You're already in the future. Do you want to go even further into the future and just start over again? With me?
Welcome, future time traveler! To when are you two going today? Excellent choice. Step right into the BP-1729 capsule. I just need to load you up with some chronotons, adjust the flux capacitor. Oh, and don't forget to buckle up.
To Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Yes, it's still fppradio.com. In this universe, in your universe, in all of the universes, except for the universes where it's not fppradio.com and this podcast isn't actually happening. And there might be a universe where that is, and I would not want to live in that one. But again, we're talking about the multiverse. Why? Because I'm answering your questions. And while the question is not directly about the multiverse, it's somewhat related. And as you know, I like to do deep dives into the questions when there's only one of them. So the question: in the timeline where you did not go into the future, you became a runner. Are you running in the timeline where you did get frozen? If so, what are some of the races you have run? Before I answer the question, a couple more pieces of possible evidence and theories about the multiverse. And again, fairly lengthy article here. Link will be in the show notes. They have some arguments against the multiverse theory. I'm not going to read those because I like the multiverse theory. I'm a big advocate of it, and I support it. So I'm not going to read it, except for in the universe where I do. But hopefully you don't live in that one. Another possible avenue for the multiverse theory is what's called the mathematical universes, which, simply put, explain that the structure of mathematics may change depending in which universe you reside. Max Tegmark, who's a proposer of this theory and also works at MIT, so yeah, smart guy, he says a mathematical structure is something that you can describe in a way that's completely independent of human baggage. He adds, I really believe that there is this universe out there that can exist independently of me, that would continue to exist even if there were no humans. And last but not least, as the idea of parallel universes go, to go back to the idea that space-time is flat, the number of possible particle configurations in multiple universes would be limited to 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 122 distinct possibilities, to be exact. So with an infinite number of cosmic patches, the particle arrangements within them must repeat infinitely many times over. This means there are infinitely many parallel universes. Yeah, that's right. There's an infinite number of parallel universes within which there are an infinite number of multiverses, in which there are an infinite number of mathematical universes, within which there are an infinite number of eternal inflation universes, etc., etc. At least that's my reading here. Space.com continues cosmic patches exactly the same as ours, as well as patches that differ by just one particle's position, patches that differ by two particles' position, so on and so on, down to patches that are totally different from our own. Which means that there are universes where I did not become a runner. There are universes where I did. And as you may be aware, in your timeline, the one where I did not come into the future, I had not yet become a runner. Yeah, I'd run a couple races. I like to say I got tricked into doing a triathlon because I didn't understand what the French-Canadian gym owner was saying when I asked her a question about a triathlon. I thought she said, we're going to do this thing on the roof. She said, we're going to do this thing as a group. And, well, I wound up doing what's called a sprint try, where swam, you can call it swimming. I was in the water in a forward-moving position for a quarter of a mile. Thought I was going to drown numerous times. Thank God I did not. And then did an 8-mile bike ride, and then a 5K forward movement thing was supposed to be a run, but I did not do a lot of running on that particular day. And then about a year later, I did just the 5K, and again, not a whole lot of running, but I kept moving forward. There was some running. And then I decided, you know what, let me see what other things I can do. And did another 5K, mostly running. And then in 2017, I started doing half marathons. In your timeline, what happened in the one where I am? Stay tuned.
Pixel, I'm being chased by assassin bots. I need an exit. Pixel!
Brian Sovereign, come with me if you want to leave.
Who are you?
I'm Adelaide. I'll tell you more later. Get in the vehicle.
Whoa, hey, you want to slow down?
I don't do slow. I move fast.
Okay, well, so you're French.
Everyone in the future speaks French.
The future?
From 2099. Permanent Autonomous Zone, Osiris-1. You've been there.
Pixel says it should be this panel.
We need to hack into the control center to shut down all of those assassin bots.
Well, you're the android.
Enjoy the future.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Yes, I know I spent a good bit of time explaining multiverses and not answering your question on the anniversary episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, episode 500, where I'm still in the future. Now, as you just heard, I think I'm in the year 2778, although the guy that greeted me to the future looked a lot like the guy that put me in that BP 1729 capsule to send me to the future. Maybe it's just fluke. Maybe he, came to the future, hitched onto the side of the thing. I'm not entirely sure. A little confused here. But again, answering your questions. Question is, in the timeline where you did not go into the future, you became a runner. Are you running in the timeline where you did get frozen? If so, what races? So yeah, in the timeline that you're used to, I became a runner in the year 2017. Now, in the future, or, well, for me, it's kind of the future. I did. I also became a runner in the future, and the favorite race, I've not done it yet, but I've heard really good things about it, the Osiris 100. Yeah, that's right. There's the floating city, Osiris 1. If you listen to Sovereign Tech, I think that's still a thing. I know when I got frozen, it was Brian Sovereign in his Sovereign universe, which actually exists somewhere out there in one of those multiverses. He talks about when he went to 2099, he talked about Osiris 1. Well, they host an ultramarathon, and I'm planning to do the Osiris 100, which is going to be a 100-mile race on Osiris 1. Yeah, that's the big race that I have coming up. Still, I've done a couple of half marathons, getting ready for a full marathon coming up before that Osiris 100. That's it for the episode 500, the anniversary episode from the future. Don't forget, in your timeline, I'm still answering your questions every Friday. Send those over. ama.fppradio.com. That's ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.